Welcome to episode 129 of Rebirth Revolution. My name is Melissa Olson. This has been another interesting week. I'm going to make this a quick one. I thought I'd touch on something that has dominated the news. It is the slap at the Oscars. During the Rebirth, we are going to be re-examining everything. And that is a good thing, because we have the option of improving the ways that we live our lives. We have the option to improve how we behave and what we find acceptable as a culture. We have the opportunity to understand each other more fully. But for a re-examination to occur, there must be some sort of collision that draws our attention. There must be some conflict so that we may have an opportunity to think about how we feel about what we are witnessing. But as I said a few weeks ago, though it may seem like everyone has to come up with a hot take on every event that happens, that isn't required. You don't need to figure everything out on the fly and share that with everyone you know. You don't have to figure out who's right and who's wrong. It is a time for listening to those who know more. It is a time for absorbing what is happening. So, for our attention to be grabbed and us to be given an opportunity at collective growth, we need to have an event that we can all experience. Here's what to keep in mind when witnessing these collisions. You get to dig deeper. You get to decide how you feel and what you believe, as well as having the wonderful opportunity to take in new information, more nuanced information from other sources that may enlighten you and your position. In reality, there are viewpoints that you might never have access to if it were not for these collisions. That is the embedded gift. This experience brings up many areas that are ripe for re-examination, such as humor, what is violence, what is an appropriate response, and what experiences are unique to cultures within the collective that we know little about. Let's start with humor. We are having to decide what is funny and what is just plain hurtful. This is not a new issue, but we seem to be taking these questions more seriously than we have in the past. There are forms of humor that we now find funny that we would have found harmful and hurtful in the past. What once seemed abhorrent, over time becomes rather bearable, and then it becomes fodder for humor. The danger is that it can drive a wedge between us and our compassion, between us and our humanity. This is the type of humor that is considered to be roasting another person. It's an interesting form of humor because the intent seems to be piling as much abuse upon another person as you can muster, and then seeing how gracefully they can accept that abuse. It feels like people have less and less of a stomach for this brand of humor. Abuse just isn't seen as funny as it once may have seemed. There are forms of humor that were once ubiquitous and damaging to entire swaths of humanity, usually those with less power, that we now see as being rather violent in their intent. Some of the jokes that used to fly, they don't fly any longer. But none of those jokes were dropped without vocal objection from those who were the butt of the jokes. These types of humor are often the easiest and the most guarded by some comedians. Many comedians think that everyone should have thick enough skin to take whatever they dish out. But is this who we want to be in the new world we wish to create? Do we want to be more focused on accepting abuse than we want to be focused on not abusing one another? Now let's talk about violence. I know that many have said that violence is not the answer. While I am not arguing in favor of violence, it is rich to hear so many white people remind a black person of this, given that white people have unleashed hundreds of years of violence on black people in an effort to subjugate them. This practice has not, to this day, ended. So, for some situations, apparently, we do feel like violence is the answer. It's hypocritical, and that is worth exploring. It is also worth exploring whether what people say to one another can be construed as violence. Are we saying that the only form of violence we recognize is physical? Anything short of throwing hands is not violence? Again, that goes back to trying to create a world in which people absorb all forms of violence and do so with thick skin. Some would say that this particular situation was first the violence of an insult, followed by the violence of the slap. Are we asking people to withstand everything, no matter what? I don't have an answer for you. I don't think anyone can look at this situation and know with certainty what the entire picture is. It's too big. It's too layered. The world is complicated. People are complicated. The culture is complicated. But the beauty of the world, the people, and the culture lies in the fact that it mirrors back to you your own experiences, your own values, your own blind spots. The world, the people, and the cultures are your teachers. It is not important for you to develop a hot take. It is not important for you to pass judgment. It is important for you to take the experiences you have and use them to find your compassion, find your blind spots, fill in your gaps in awareness. While none of us would ever wish to be personally involved in one of these dust-ups, we can all use them to further our own growth and understanding. Seek out opinions that are different from your own. Seek out the opinions of those who know more than you do, and see these cultural moments as the gifts that they are. Through no fault of our own, we are limited in our understanding by the experiences we have had. We might know what one would know if they grew up when and where we did, but even then, we have had a different experience than even those who grew up in our own home and family. No two journeys are exactly alike, so we run everything through our very specific filter. It is only normal that we see the world through our eyes, but those eyes see just a small piece of the human experience. Where we are going with all of this, all of our spiritual journey, is to learn a much bigger part of the picture. And we can only do that by taking in the experiences of others. Only then will we truly understand the complexity of it all and come to the realization that people tend to do what makes sense to them, given what their life experience has been. It may not align with what you think you would do, but you are not having the same experience. As always, we have an opportunity to move closer to feeling nothing but love and compassion for ourselves and others. Thanks for returning for another week of Rebirth Revolution. I hope that you've had an opportunity to figure out any ways in which this week's events have brought up your own issues and I hope that you've been able to shed more light on them. You can always let me know how you're doing by emailing me at rebirthrev@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Rebirth Revolution can be found on all the podcast apps, the music apps, and full episodes can be found on YouTube and our Facebook page. Please subscribe, download, and share whenever possible. Until next week, practice kindness to everyone. Practice kindness to yourself. Take the appropriate COVID precautions and send all your positive vibes out into the world. Remember, you are loved exactly as much as every other person on the planet, not 1 ounce more or 1 ounce less. Stay strong and safe and compassionate.